when I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died. My richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride. Forbid it, Lord, that I should boast, save in the death of Christ my God. All the vain things that charm me most, I sacrifice them to His blood. See from His head, His hands, His feet, sorrow and love flow mingled down. It has such love and sorrow meets, all thorns compose so rich a crown. His dying crimson like a robe spreads o'er His body on the tree. Then am I dead to all the globe, and all the globe is dead to me. With the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my own. Love so amazing, so divine, shall have my soul, my life, my own.
Good morning. We have come to Great or Good Friday, when the events of Holy Week reach their climax, when Jesus is taken out and taken to the cross. Normally on Good Friday, we Christians of Shipley would have a quiet time of worship and then move to St Paul's and process down New Kirkgate and into the Market Square, and the Salvation Army band would play. We would sing some hymns and we would pause to remember the crucifixion of Christ. We thought about different ways of doing that this year, but eventually the government advice was we couldn't even gather at a spatial distance and meet as a larger group. So here's this simple act of worship to help you as you move through Good Friday. We'll start with a prayer, and then I'll read a version of the Passion narrative. On our daily news, we've provided the readings so that you can read along in your own Bibles. What I will offer is not the full biblical text, but more a recounting of the pattern of events. You may feel you want to stop this video between different elements of the story to pause and reflect. Or you might simply want to play the video through on YouTube and then have a time of quiet and personal prayer at the end. Let each of us do that which helps us most to recall the events of Good Friday. We remember that little refrain that the church has used down through the centuries. Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison. Lord, have mercy. Jesus went forth with his disciples across the Kidron Valley, where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas, who had betrayed him, also knew the place, for Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas, procuring a band of soldiers and some officers of the chief priests and the Pharisees, went there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing that all that was to befall him, came forward and said to them, "Whom do you seek?" They answered him, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus said to them, "I am he." Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. When he said to them, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again he asked them, "Whom do you seek?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus answered, "I told you that I am he. So if you seek me, let these men go." This was to fulfill the word which he had spoken. "Of those whom thou gavest me, I lost not one." Then Simon Peter, having a sword, drew it and struck the high priest's slave and cut off his right ear. The slave's name was Malchus. Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword into its sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which the Father has given me?" So the band of soldiers and their captain and the officers of the Jews seized Jesus and bound him. First they led him to Annas, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest that year. It was Caiaphas who'd given counsel to the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. As this disciple was known to the high priest, he entered the court of the high priest along with Jesus, while Peter stood outside the door. So the other disciple, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the maid who kept the door and brought Peter in. The maid who kept the door said to Peter, "Are you not one of his disciples?" He said, "I am not." Now the servants and officers had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. The high priest then questioned Jesus about his disciples and his teaching. Jesus answered him, "I have spoken openly to the world. I've always taught in the synagogues and in the temple, where all the Jews come together. I've said nothing secretly. Why do you ask me? Ask those who have heard me what I said to them. They know what I said." When he had said this, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If I've spoken wrongly, bear witness to the wrong. But if I've spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" Annas then sent him bound to Caiaphas the high priest. Now Simon Peter was standing and warming himself. They said to him, "Are you not one of his disciples?" He denied it and said, "I am not." One of the servants of the high priest, a kinsman of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Didn't I see you in the garden with him?" Peter denied it, and the cock crowed. Then they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the praetorium. It was early. They themselves did not enter the praetorium, so that they might not be defiled, but might eat the Passover. So Pilate went out to them and said, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered him, "If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have handed him over." Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It isn't lawful for us to put a man to death." This was to fulfill the word which Jesus had spoken, to show by what death he was to die. Pilate entered the praetorium again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or do others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingship is not of this world. If my kingship were of this world, my servants would fight that I might not be handed over to the Jews. But my kingship is not from the world." Pilate said to him, "So you're a king?" Jesus answered, "You say I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no crime in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. Will you have me release for you the King of the Jews?" They cried out again, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now, Barabbas was a robber. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him scourged, and soldiers plaited a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They put about him a purple robe, and they joined him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." When the chief priests and the officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no crime in him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, and by that law he ought to die, because he's made himself the Son of God." When Pilate heard these words, he was more afraid. And he said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, "You will not speak to me? Do you know that I have the power to release you and the power to crucify you?" Jesus answered him, "You would have no power over me unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me to you has the greater sin." Upon this, Pilate sought to release him, but the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you're not Caesar's friend. Everyone who makes himself a king sets himself against Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judgment seat at a place called the Pavement, and in Hebrew, Gabbatha. Now it was the day of the preparation of the Passover. It was about the 6th hour. And he said to the Jews, "Behold your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him! We have no king but Caesar." Then Pilate handed him over to be crucified. So they took Jesus, and he went out, bearing his own cross, to the place he called the place of the skull, Golgotha. There they crucified him with 2 others, one on either side, and Jesus between them. Pilate also wrote a title and put it on the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this title, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, in Latin, and in Greek. The chief priests of the Jews then said to Pilate, "Don't write King of the Jews, but this man said, 'I am King of the Jews.'" Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." The soldiers crucified Jesus. They took his garments and made 4 parts of them. But the tunic was without seam, woven from top to bottom. So they said to one another, "Let's not tear it, but cast lots for it to see who it shall be." This was to fulfill the scripture, "They parted garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots." Standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother and his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing near, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son." Then he said to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And from that hour the disciple took her into his own home. After this, Jesus, knowing that it was now finished, said, "I thirst." A bowl full of sour wine stood there, so they put a sponge in it on a hyssop and held it to his mouth. When Jesus had received the sour wine, he said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they nailed him to the tree? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when the sun refused to shine? Were you there when he rose up from the grave? Were you there when he rose up from the grave? Sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble.